Hey guys, welcome back to another exciting episode of Maneaters. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and I've got my co-host for the day.
Paul Presenza, otherwise known as the Moo Cow. Moo.
And we've got a special guest here too.
Curtis Barnes, hanging out watching good movies.
So I figured we had Curtis for another show that we did, and we said, are you bored? And
this is a Man-Eaters?
Yeah, Man-Eaters.
Nobody got eaten.
Nobody
got eaten.
Nobody really did get eaten in this one. So this is
no, nobody got eaten.
Nobody got eaten. Lots of people died.
Yeah, wow.
They got shot out of the butt tail of some bug thing
with the big butthole faces.
Well, anyway, this movie is Plains Invaders. If you haven't seen the title of the on the YouTube episode, but you're right. Nobody got eaten. This is Man-Eaters where nobody got eaten. Well, I mean,
sci-fi.
Well, I mean, I guess they were supposed to be eaten, but they really wanted their uranium instead. That's what they wanted. They didn't want to eat. They didn't want to eat any of the people. They did like throw people. They threw people around and killed them, but they didn't.
A lot of stabby, a lot of weird tail butt shooting,
but no man eating, which is the whole point of the series.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. The point of the series is like things that could eat you, I guess. Really.
Well, so. In that case, anything could eat you.
I know. Well, I mean, anything like, because when I first started, like, I think they started with the Man-Eater, which was about a tiger. Then there was a croc, and after a while, I think they started getting like, okay, what else can we do?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to sci-fi movies, it does seem like they're reaching into the barrel and they're almost empty.
Yeah.
They're lazy people. Lazy.
They're a little lazy, but it's all right. It wasn't, as we talked about before. It's sort of probably, if we had to give this a number on the stinkometer, we'd probably give it a 5. 5.5 or 6, something like that. But it's not.
But it did have James Marsters.
It had James Marsters. It had Cindy Sampson, who was in the other one we did, Swamp Devil, which we liked her better than that. Yeah. She did a better job, which it wasn't because she did a bad job in this. They just didn't give her much to work with in this movie. She did as good of a job as she could, with the character. And then there was let's see, I'm gonna read out some of the character names that are and Rose was played by Sanny Van Hetteren. All right, I never heard of her. Let's see, Jules was played by Sebastian Knapp. I really liked him. The sheriff was James Jordan. Gus was Anthony Byrne, and Gus was the other guy, right?
Yes. The one for half the movie wasn't even there.
Yeah, he was like in the jail with him, right?
Yeah, he started at the beginning of the movie, and then out of nowhere, I was like, "So what happened to his friend?"
Yeah,
like he disappeared
vanished
completely from the movie, and then randomly showed up.
Yeah, you
like
kept wondering. You kept wondering. And
Deus Ex Machina.
Then he came in to help out, which I always sort of hated when characters just returned, just to help out or whatever.
Deus Ex Machina.
Why didn't they disappear? Why didn't they get up?
Well, how did he escape from the jail? They never let him out of the jail. He's literally in the cells.
Yeah,
so nothing made sense.
No, none of that. It just made sense for the story, I guess.
The script demanded it.
It's one of those things where he could make it on the first day of shooting. He could make it on the last 3 days of shooting, but he missed all the middle days.
Who was the woman? It doesn't even say who.
Abigail?
No, not Abigail. Abigail was Cindy Sampson's character. I'm talking about the woman that was like older woman who was
the prospector's wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Adriana Batuoy.
Batoy.
Oh, prospector's wife. Okay.
Yeah, they didn't give her a name. Literally, the entire movie, she was there
Serena.
for half. What?
She was. They called her Serena, so I don't know why they didn't.
Okay, there you go. Like that makes no sense.
No, wow.
They gave her a name, but they didn't give her a name in the credits.
That's fucked up.
That is messed up.
They could have said Serena and then parentheses prospector's wife, so you knew who she was.
Yes.
But calling her the prospector's wife is kind of fucked up.
Serena shot in the head.
That's a dick move.
Yeah, that was not cool. But
unless the credits were written before and they gave her a name later on in the rewrites or something. I don't know. It's weird.
I think you're giving them way too much credit.
It's Prospector's wife, then it's Prospector Franklin.
Yeah, and I don't remember the Prospector.
And didn't the sheriff have a name?
He did.
He did, but they just call him Sheriff. Cornelius. Which one's Cornelius?
I don't know.
Or
was that
Cure?
Wasn't Cornelius the shopkeeper?
He might have been. Yeah, he might have been the shopkeeper. I'm surprised they didn't just call him shopkeeper.
I know.
Yeah, the way it's going, yeah.
Only Sam and Abigail, because they kept calling Abigail and Rose.
Or Silage Cure was.
That's what I'm saying. Silage Cure. Like, what? Who's that?
I don't remember.
There's so many, like, random characters that just die in the movie.
Yes.
But they don't, like, almost everybody dies in the beginning. Then
Pretty
all of a
much.
sudden it's, like, left with those people. And then most of the time they don't die.
Because the bugs don't do anything.
Yeah,
for
the
a good
bugs
chunk
just-
of time.
It's sort of like I was comparing it before to Abraham Lincoln versus zombies, but it sort of is, because remember when the zombies and Abraham versus the Lincoln versus zombies were just like sitting there,
Right.
and they were just passing by them and stuff, but then they would switch things around when all of a sudden the zombies would come after them for no reason. It would just so this was sort of like that, where
It did feel like that.
yeah, you seen that movie?
Yes, I have.
Oh my god, an asylum film. Who works with sci-fi?
Of course.
So, I don't know. It was terrible.
Monsters were killing people and they weren't killing people, and they're digging holes, and
Because they want to eat uranium because they're addicted to it.
because somehow some magical guy understood that. For some weird reason.
So they sent their spaceship to Earth, where uranium is extremely rare, because God forbid there could be other planets elsewhere in the whole universe.
Right.
There might be an entire planet made out of uranium.
That'd be interesting.
Well,
That's a sci-fi movie right there.
Well, see, like, for all the angles I could have taken with these bug-like creatures, they had to go with space aliens, like, not dormant bugs under the ground that they fight.
Right.
Take a
Right.
Tremors aspect.
That's exactly
it's
what
a
I was
tried
thinking.
and true, story.
Uh-huh.
We can go there, we can defeat them, you can still play the whole uranium thing. Just why did we have to have a space?
That's what I thought it was going to be. It was going to be a Tremors Western mashup.
But then you said it became like Cowboys versus Aliens.
Yeah, they just wanted that what a twist moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean...
Then it became Blood Predator Western mashup.
Yeah, what... It was so
Dumb
kind of
bugs.
stupid, because, like, these aliens, right, or whatever these things are, these crickets or from hell or whatever they are. They are, they're from space, crickets from space, which, it just sort of becomes this sort of boring thing then, all of a sudden.
Yes.
Guns in their tails that shoot uranium projectiles.
And then,
They have,
sometimes if he shot him in, the right place, good shot in the eye or whatever,
They
they
never
die.
explain that. Like
And then they're all worrying about, well, how are we going to stop these things? I'm like, keep shooting him in the fucking eye.
Or just run.
Yeah.
it made no sense. It's just that they have 3 butthole-looking things on their face, and clearly one of them gets shot, they die, and it's like one shot dead, but they're armored everywhere else.
The Rose character was so...
armored everywhere except the place where they actually need it.
Correct.
Yeah. The Rose character was so annoying throughout the whole thing. She's so supposed to be annoying, but we all laughed when she said the other chick was annoying her, and I'm
Yes.
like, he was like, call the
Call on the kettle black.
and I thought the exact same thing, just didn't say it out loud,
Yes.
and he said it. I was like, because she was absolutely annoying.
It's just that stereotype character of, like, the trophy strong female that isn't feminine at all,
Right.
and you're making a dude with tits. That's it.
Her name was Rose, and it was probably written for somebody else, to
Girls
like a male.
can be jerks too.
Guess
It
they
was
can.
probably originally written as a male character, and then they said, oh no, we need to make this a female character, so we're going to have a strong female character. Because Abigail is not very strong
No.
as far as
I mean,
things
she's
go.
somewhat strong. She just doesn't shoot anybody.
She doesn't shoot, and she I mean, she helps out. She does like the nurturing and stuff.
Yeah,
but
she's
more
like the strong
She's-
heart center of
Yeah.
the group, you know.
Yeah.
But
Let's see.
that's not cool enough. You got to have somebody running around spitting and shooting guns.
I think if you'd have lost the Abigail character, the whole thing would have fell apart. Like, she
Yeah.
held the whole story together. She was keeping the party together.
I
She
agree.
was saving lives.
She was the
she was
reason.
legitimately the strong female character without giving her the opportunity to be the strong
Right,
female character.
she's like the reason why people bother in the first place.
Well, correct.
You know?
Right, because she's so sweet. Like, you see it, because after a while, you're going to be kind of annoyed.
And she's sort of like the moral center, you know.
Yeah.
Because everyone else would have ran. The sheriff would have ran. The bounty hunter would have ran.
Sam would have ran, though.
Yeah, Sam's the only one that might have stayed, but he stayed because he's repenting and because he's in love with Abigail.
Yeah, because
Like-
he's in love with Abigail. That was the big thing.
Well, and you take her away, you just have a movie of everyone running away.
Right.
Yeah, so she should have been the strong
Yes.
female character. But instead, they had, shoot 'em up chick and
Well, I guess they had
fastest gun north of the Pecos, then they said south of the Pecos. And I'm like, where the fuck are the Pecos anyway?
And then they have her randomly kill the guy.
I
in the
mean,
bar
I know that's
shit-
a real place, right?
Yeah.
That's because
guess.
Pico Spill. There's really is like a
But it's such a
generic
overused trope and
Correct.
and what do you call it?
cliche.
Cliche.
Yeah,
Especially the
absolutely.
I reckon this and I don't cotton to that.
I don't got
Like,
that.
oh dear,
Oh,
really?
man, we're
They
like,
play too hard into the
Oh,
howdy y'all, I'm country.
That is why you need to see Deadwood, because he completely changes the language to it's a lot more, late 19th century, but it makes it unique. You're not going to see or hear that done in any other Western type movie.
so was it?
show.
There at one point the guy says, "Oh man,"
Yeah.
and you even
Yeah.
said
Oh,
like,
God.
"Who in the West says oh,
Oh,
man?"
man.
Like at that time.
And I
period.
immediately thought of Ryan O'Neal, that famous shitty scene where he's like, oh man, oh god, oh man, oh man, oh god, oh man. It's like, oh lord.
Yep. Man, this. You know what this feels like? If they had the budget, they could have got like Nicolas Cage in this movie, and that would have made it
I
more
think
fun.
Nicolas Cage would have turned this down.
Well, yeah, of course, but I'm
I
saying
think
if
Nick
you had
Cage's
more.
some bad movies. I think at least his movies have some fun action.
I know.
The acting wasn't bad. James Marsden's,
Marsden's was wonderful.
I felt
Yeah.
bad for him just as
I do feel bad for him.
an actor.
As an actor, because
It's
he had
just
to
a shitty
be in this
movie.
movie.
But it's what you do. You're a professional actor. You act.
You act in shit, even if you don't want to.
Yeah, well, and he's been in some really good B movies. Like he's in a bunch of stuff on Netflix and Amazon right now. That's good.
And the thing is, he's always one of the best things about the movie. Like, even if the movie is bad, you're still gonna get a good, get something good from him.
Yeah,
right?
they were all pretty much good. I
Yeah,
mean,
the acting was fine. It's just there was nothing where the story was incoherent.
yeah,
I did like the
writing.
sheriff when he was doing the hanging and everything, and the sheriff actually says a good line where he's like, you're getting conscious now, or this is
Yeah.
not the time to get a conscience because you're about to die,
Yeah.
from this. And I actually like that because it showed right then and there a little bit of a thing of like the sheriff wasn't a terrible person; he was just doing his job.
Yeah,
And the bad guy wasn't terrible because we didn't know why, but we could
James
tell.
Monsters. That's why.
James Marsters,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because he's a well, I don't know.
He's the
Spike was a
reluctant
pretty
hero.
bad character in the
Yeah,
beginning. In the
yeah.
beginning, then they kind of took his arc and made him a good guy.
But he's a reluctant hero in this one.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a reluctant hero, and then he also gives himself some backstory to his character too, which I liked. I liked
Yeah.
all the stuff he said. Though it just didn't make any sense sometimes when the people were running away from stuff, and then they just break down to talk for a little bit. I'm like, you can talk and run.
and there's a lot of good aspects to this movie. They force fed you the story in points that didn't fit. It was It was very predictable at times. And it's like they could have done so much original that they just didn't.
It's. I gotta say, it's fairly typical of your sci-fi stuff.
Yeah.
It's
It's-
kind of meh.
It's kind of meh. I picked this because we hadn't had a Maneaters in a couple months, and I knew Paul was a big fan of westerns, which I'm not, and he knew that because when he saw that he was like, "This is a western? You hate westerns?" And I'm like, I hate westerns, but I it's like kind of like I hate zombie movies, but I like zombie comedies, so I can watch some, you know. I like westerns if they're horror westerns.
What about a zombie western and comedy?
I would be down with that. Like that would be okay with me, honestly.
They have a few.
I think they have.
There's a few out there. Like
I mean, I watched one with Tony Todd that wasn't that great, but it was at least fun, you know, and stuff. And that's the thing. Like,
yeah, this one kind of lacks some fun.
Yeah.
If it had a bit more fun and humor in it, it could have been a lot better.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I could ignored a lot of the flaws and a lot of the tropes that it had if it just
you
a
look
little
at,
more fun.
You look at Tremors, and that was a fun movie. It was ridiculous and silly, and a lot of the same issues I had with that movie are the same ones here, but it was done in such a way that it was a lot more fun and a lot more interesting, and the characters were a lot more interesting, too.
The characters played off each other in Tremors. There was comedy. There was humor. They actually made tension. There was no tension inside this movie. There was no real comedy. I felt no sense of urgency at all inside this movie when they were trying to run from things.
Yeah. And there was no, like, there was no care enough, like, for most of the characters.
They meandered throughout the town. They're big monsters. They just, I'm going to go to the store. Like, literally, that's how it felt.
When Jules, like, gave himself up, I wasn't, like, gonna cry over this shit.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And they had a good chance to play on a good name to make the weird scientist guy Jules Verne, and they skipped right over.
Well, no, they didn't just skip over. They mentioned, oh, there's another Jules that wrote a book from here to, or whatever, and it's all about, you know. And I'm like, okay, really?
If they had just made him Jules Verne, it would have tied in the spaceship. Then I'd be like, okay, I kind of get what they were going for, but they just kind of took that out.
Yeah, like Jules Verne had to actually deal with this shit.
I love how he says, you know, the uranium's extremely rare. It's more valuable than gold, but there's no market for it. What? That doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense. If it's more valuable than gold, even she says that to him. You just said it was more valuable than gold, so of course there's a market for it. She even says that line. So like they knew what they were saying was wrong.
It's it's late 1800s. Like who knew about lead shielding? Who knew even what to do with uranium outside of some basic laboratory testing?
Exactly who is buying this uranium?
Well, I mean nowadays, uranium's like?
Sure.
I mean.
Super rare and super expensive.
It's super expensive, and fucking like in Back to the Future, wasn't that what they had to have uranium or something?
In the first one, yeah.
In the first one, and then they had to go get it from like, you know,
how many gigawatts was it?
Yeah,
1.21.
1.21
gigawatts.
Yeah. And what is it? But they had to get it from like some kind of terrorists or something.
Yes, he did. He got it from terrorists, and that's where they got shot at the beginning of that movie.
Right. So like. These days, like back then, I guess it was rare, but like there was
back to the Old West.
You know, back to the Old West, there was rare, but it wasn't like terrorists were seizing it or whatever.
Outside the early, 19th century, where they're using, like Paul mentioned in the movie, jewelry, glassware, things of that nature, because it looked good.
Oh Lord, and they had to have something that the space crickets from.
Oh, and I love how the bugs are going to explode, and it's going to cause a chain reaction. Because everything exploding always causes a chain reaction.
They copped out on the end of the movie with the spaceship.
And then the spaceship's way up there, up until the very last second, and it's right there sitting on top, and just for the only reason so it can be blown up.
I even said that. Like, I was just like, what the fuck? Why is that spaceship there? And you said... so it could get blown up, and I go, no, yeah.
The level of disappointment you had when the spaceship was way out here, and it goes middle of the screen when everyone's eating their uranium, and you're like, why is it doing that?
Why is it doing that?
What is the point of it doing that?
Oh, right, it wasn't like it was sucking them back up into the spaceship or something. It was just literally hovering over them, only so that when the thing blew up, that everything, including... the other aliens, because heaven forbid they left it open for a sequel or something,
It's typical. Everything blows up in the end.
And what in like big chunks were like, oh look, it could be a sequel. Like they could have new technology. It turns into confetti.
At least the movie
tiny confetti.
Knew when to end, because as soon as that happened, it ended.
It ended. It was like, we're done.
It didn't just drag on like a zombie, like some movies we've seen.
Yeah.
Or just shuffles off until somebody puts a bullet in its brain. At least it ended. So.
At least it made sense for the ending, but it's just sort of like...
But you know what? It's a shame. I like both the characters who ended, but I didn't really give a shit about them afterwards. It wasn't like Oh, I wonder what happened. I wonder if they're okay. I wonder what life they have.
What
I
is
wonder
that?
if
He
they're
went to the
still
next town. He
together.
got hung. That's what's gonna happen. He's a known murderer.
Yeah.
He's gonna go to the next town and be hung.
If that one bounty hunter died, Rose died, then
Yeah.
I'm sure there's another one coming after him. So.
Well, that's in the second part.
But they did say that he gets a clean slate. I'm like thinking, no, he doesn't.
How does that even work? Like, oh,
Maybe
magically
if he goes to Alaska.
Yeah, he has to literally probably leave the country in a way. Well, like he has to go to Europe, and maybe they won't, come after him.
you need to go to South Mexico, to South America, or Canada, or any of the northern
That would
territories.
have been an interesting thing, South America, and then the crickets follow him there.
Yeah. C.J. Marster with
There
a
you
pistol
go.
fighting on, the
There's a
Aztec.
sequel
Write the
idea,
sequel.
sci-fi.
Write it up, dude.
Yeah,
Send it to sci-fi.
no, because
I
I swear if this is like 2007 or something. I guarantee you,
It
if
felt
they
like
haven't made a
2007.
sequel yet, this just didn't do well enough or something.
I think they already have a movie about the Aztec ruins and monsters coming out of them.
Is that called Aztec versus the Mummy versus?
I think so.
That was you watch those things, the Aztec mummy movies. We don't need any more of that. We're done with that. But all in all, I will say that it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen or anything, like by far.
It was pretty much just.
It was just kind of meh. It was kind of boring.
It was slow.
Yeah, there was slow moments, which I guess are because you can't have a movie with like these crickets attacking every 2 seconds for a sci-fi. They just don't have the budget. They just don't have the budget for that.
You could tell, beginning of the movie there was one, and the movie there was, they had a big group, and that was the big explosion scene.
Well, they also had one. They had a big scene after one of them got shot or whatever, and the other ones came after them. They had like 3 or 4 there.
Yeah.
And then
Then you only saw one, and it's ones and twos, because you can clearly tell they didn't have much of a budget.
And then when you saw that there were more that existed, I guess, or whatever. I don't know.
Some of the sets were alright.
Yeah.
Well, I liked the sets. I liked how I did the barn.
Well, you thought that the sets were like in like an old town that left over and they found it or something.
Or they used it, they rented it out. It was probably reused over and over in other westerns. It's usually how it works.
What were you saying? You were saying something?
I was still going on about the monsters, and just I feel it's a cop out. Like they just didn't show them enough, so there's no sense of horror.
Well, and they don't explain anything about them other than they're aliens. They're addicted to the weird shit, and they have, for whatever reason, a gun built in their.
And that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, because they were using that before.
They're clawing people, they're attacking people, and then out of nowhere you just see them shooting.
Yep.
It came from out of nowhere.
It was like they were adapting to their surroundings.
It wasn't even a laser or anything.
No, I thought they were like adapting to their surroundings because like the people were shooting at them, so maybe like they had a way to do stuff that other people were doing.
They were changing.
I don't know. Maybe they're evolving.
You're adding more things, more thought to the film than they did.
Well, but maybe that was what the writers were going for. Who knows? I don't know. I like to think that the writers took some more time into it than they showed, because sometimes things get lost in the shuffle of when you're making a movie. So somebody says, "Oh, this is a great idea." The producer says, "Okay, we'll do that," and then they leave it out.
So there's like a scene that actually explains everything, but we have to cut a scene, so that's.
We had to cut a scene. That's the scene we cut. Is the one that explains everything.
Not that 15 minutes and walking calmly around the town, doing absolutely nothing but collecting stuff and running lines for dynamite.
Yep, that stuff. That stuff had to stay in. That was very useful to the movie.
Oh yeah, because it's such a sense of urgency when people are just running wire and just slowly walking.
It would have been fun if James Marsden had gotten to play Spike and there had been vampires versus aliens. Has anyone done that before? I don't think so.
There has to be something out there. Probably
Vampires
not with Spike,
versus
but
aliens.
Vamp aliens. Vampire aliens.
Vampire
alien
penguins
pyres.
from outer space. I've been trying to make that.
Yeah, you do it yourself, man. Alright, well, I guess that's about wraps it up. I mean, I don't know. This movie was okay. It was not, it was nothing I don't even know if I'd watch this again. Maybe if it were on Sci-Fi and I'd catch a few minutes of it or something, but I don't think I'd
Yeah,
watch it
it's-
much more.
It's
'cause-
not very good, and unfortunately, it's not nearly as bad to make it fun and enjoyable to torment other
Yeah,
people.
so it's sort of lost in that kind of like, it could have been a lot better than it was, but it just didn't go that route.
And that's why, you're not seeing more of them, because it didn't. They're looking for the next Sharknado, and that wasn't it.
Well, it had potential, and they just dropped the ball. Like, they had good actors. They had a decent budget to do something. They just...
They had an okay script. Like, it could have been... The script could have been better and whatnot, but it wasn't... Like, the dialogue wasn't terrible, or the... you can understand sort of what's going... How many times have we watched movies you can't understand anything that's happening in the movie? So, like, I mean...
the last one we watched?
Like the last one we watched.
Yes.
Where we just don't understand a damn thing that's going on. This, at least, we understood it. It's just... It sort of sometimes maybe didn't make as much sense, especially with the science talk and stuff like
Yeah.
uranium
Kind of makes you
and
wish
shit.
you didn't understand it.
Yeah,
That gave us more room to make fun of it.
yeah. But at least I enjoyed it. So thank you guys. I enjoyed watching it with everybody and everything.
I don't
And
like that.
I can say I've
was
seen
fun.
High Plains Invaders, so I'm alright.
There you
with that.
go.
I own it, but once again I don't think I'll ever watch it again. I will be happy to own it though. So anyway, thank you guys for checking this out. Join us next month for a brand new episode. Till then, bye.
Bye. James Marsters.